Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. In 6 days, James Comey is set to give public testimony before Congress in which he is widely expected to reveal attempts by the president to interfere with and possibly to obstruct the FBI investigation of his campaign's ties to Russia. Tonight, the Trump White House is weighing whether to take the extraordinary step of trying to block Comey from speaking. The former FBI director, who was fired last month in the midst of the Russia investigation, is due before an open session of the Senate Intelligence Committee at 10 a.m. next Thursday, June 8th. But now, according to Bloomberg reporter Jennifer Jacobs, the White House confirms they're reviewing whether to invoke executive privilege to prevent Comey from testifying before Congress next week. Asked earlier today if the president planned to intervene to try and silence Comey, White House press secretary did not rule it out.
That committee hearing was just noticed, and I think obviously it's got to be reviewed.
So that is not a no?
No, it's just saying I don't. Literally, my understanding is the date for that hearing was just set. I have not spoken to counsel yet. I don't know how they're gonna respond.
If the president were to pursue an executive privilege claim to stop Comey from speaking, regardless of the legal merits, it would represent yet another major escalation in his battle against the former FBI director. And this comes amid reports that the law enforcement investigation of Russia's election interference is expanding under the leadership of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. According to the Associated Press, Mueller has taken control of a pre-existing criminal investigation involving one-time Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who was forced to resign amid questions about his ties to a pro-Russian political faction in Ukraine. AP also reports that Mueller's investigation may expand to examine the roles of Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein in the president's firing of James Comey. Pressure has already been mounting on another member of the Trump administration, the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner, who has now landed on the cover of Time magazine after it was revealed that he's under scrutiny in the Russia probe. At the White House briefing today, Sean Spicer refused once again to explain why the president's son-in-law met during the transition with the head of a sanctioned Russian bank, Sergei Gorkov, an ally of Vladimir Putin. Because, as the Washington Post points out, the previously offered explanations for the New York meeting just do not add up. The bank maintained this week the session was held as part of a new business strategy and was conducted with Kushner in his role as the head of his family's real estate business. The White House says the meeting was unrelated to business and was one of many diplomatic encounters the soon-to-be presidential advisor was holding ahead of Donald Trump's inauguration. At a conference today in St. Petersburg, Russia, NBC's Keir Simmons tried to ask the Russian banker himself what his meeting with Kushner was all about.
Mr. Gorkov, it's very good to see you here. Keir Simmons from NBC News. You're the subject of intense scrutiny in America because of your meeting with Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
We're not any comments about that. We now have a session about blockchain.
I know you do, but the thing is, there is some confusion over what exactly happened. Were you talking about business or were you talking about politics?
Where is our comments, please?
No, can I just ask, have you been contacted by the FBI or would you be prepared to talk to them, Mr. Gorkov?
While the subject of the meeting is still in contention, there is now reporting about what Mr. Gorkov, seen there, did immediately after it. The Washington Post tracked down flight data for what appears to have been the plane that carried Gorkov to and from his meeting with Kushner. After leaving Newark on December 14th, the jet headed to Japan, where Vladimir Putin was visiting on December 15th and 16th. The news media had reported that Gorkov would join the Russian president there. I'm joined now by Congressman Eric Swalwell. He's a Democrat from California and a member of the House Intelligence Committee. I want to first get your reaction to the news. The White House is considering invoking executive privilege as an attempt to stop James Comey from testifying. Do you think they have the legal ability to do that?
Good evening, Chris. I do not believe they have that ability. It looks like that privilege was waived with the president talking about his conversations with Comey in a number of interviews, as well as through his Twitter account. And so I think the director should be allowed to come forward and tell us just what the president said to him, whether any pressure was applied, and whether he was being denied resources as he was seeking them from the Department of Justice.
There's some sense that the president might short of the sort of invoking legal privilege, just put a lot of pressure to bear on Richard Burr, who is the committee chair over on the Senate side, to try to get the hearing canceled or the invitation withdrawn. Do you think that's likely? Do you have confidence the chair over there can stand up to that?
At this point, I wouldn't put it past the president to apply pressure anywhere. We've seen him try and interfere with the House's investigation. We've seen him trying to interfere with the Department of Justice and the FBI's investigation. So I would not put the president above that. But I do believe that Senators Burr and Warner are conducting an honest investigation over there, and they're not going to be bullied by this president.
Speaking of which, you just referred to pressure, and I think you're obliquely referring to the chair of your own committee, Devin Nunes, who's officially recused himself from this matter, but appears to also be issuing subpoenas by himself to Obama officials on the sort of side issue of unmasking. Do I have that right, and can he do that?
He is doing that. He should not be doing that. If he has truly stepped aside, then his pen should be nowhere near any subpoena that touches on the Russia investigation. And the president has made these bizarre and deceitful unmasking claims a part of the Russia investigation. And so the chair should truly step aside and allow Mike Conaway and Ranking Member Schiff to work together and not interfere in our own investigation.
There is, just to be clear about what unmasking is for folks that have not tracked this, it's the practice of essentially removing the redaction of a name of a U.S. person in an intelligence report. That redaction's there to protect their privacy, but it can be removed at request. And I want to get your reaction to this news, because Devin Nunes has said that the Obama White House abused that, or he's intimated they have. This is from the Washington Post just shortly ago. The Republican-controlled House Intelligence Committee asked U.S. spy agencies late last year to reveal the names of U.S. individuals or organizations contained in classified intelligence on Russia's meddling in the 2016 election, engaging in the same practice that President Trump has accused the Obama administration of abusing, current and former officials said. What do you make of that?
Again, Chris, the unmasking claims by the president or by Chairman Nunes have always been a distraction from the Russia investigation. Unmasking is a standard practice that intelligence officials take when they need to learn more about information they receive. Sometimes it's done in the executive branch, and as you saw in the Washington Post story, sometimes it's done by House committee members that the chairman oversees. He actually has to sign off on those unmasking requests.
Individually?
Yes, he does.
So he knows how much unmasking he or his colleagues on the committee are doing precisely.
He does, because that would come from his pen. And again, we believe this is just an effort to distract, deflect, and disrupt a lawful investigation into the president's ties to Russia.
Do you believe, we have some reporting tonight that the special counsel investigation has expanded? There's a sort of a portfolio that includes an existing Manafort investigation, and then possibly the sort of question of whether the President of the United States obstructed justice in his handling of Comey. Do you believe the special counsel should be investigating this obstruction question in the sort of basket of things that he's looking into?
Yes, Robert Mueller should have a wide latitude to follow the evidence wherever it takes him. And if the president is cleared, then he should come forward and tell us that. But if the president or people on his team worked with Russia during its interference campaign, they should be held accountable. And what we ask is that the FBI, under former Director Mueller, be allowed to conduct their work without any interference from the White House and then report back to the American people.
There's a lot of focus on Jared Kushner now. There's been several outlets that have reported that he is someone who the investigation is at least looking at. He is not a suspect. He is not a target of the investigation, but he is someone whose involvement is being looked at by investigators. Is Jared Kushner someone that you would like to hear from testify under oath?
Well, Chris, what I'll tell you is we are seeking to hear from relevant witnesses, review relevant documents. And so if a person worked with or talked to the Russians before the election or during the transition period, especially considering that Russia attacked our democracy, then that to me would be a relevant person that we would want to hear from. It doesn't mean that they did anything wrong, but it means that we should be able to ask questions and understand what the nature of their relationship was with a foreign adversary.
Finally, how big of an escalation would it be if the president basically told James Comey he couldn't testify?
I think that would tell us probably everything we needed to know about whether he was trying to pressure James Comey to make the Flynn case go away or whether he was trying to make the Russia investigation go away.
All right, Congressman Eric Swalwell, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.